If you were watching this movie, that means you need a little extra help solving quadratics by factoring. So make sure you have the sheets, the front and back. It's got 12 problems. We'll take a few notes on the back side first, and then I'll do a couple of problems on the front to help you guys out. So in a quadratic, the normal form is usually ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. It's called standard form. And we want to make sure that every time we solve a quadratic using factoring that we put it in that form first. So if you see something that's not in that form, get it into that form first. And the basis behind factoring is, and when it's easiest, is when that is 1 or we can take out a GCF. And if we can do that and make it a 1, then the factoring becomes super easy. So if we go to the front side, we're going to do number 3, number 5, and we'll also do number 7. So looking at number 3, this one's already in standard form. So this constant term is the multiplied term, and the middle term is the add term. So where does that come from? That comes from when you multiply binomials, and we'll do that on the back side just once. If we have x plus 3 times x minus 5, and we use the box to multiply, you end up with x squared here, because that's x times x, and negative 5 times x, and positive 3 times x, and then negative 15 in this box. So writing this out, you see x squared minus 5x plus 3x minus 15. And a simplified version is when you combine those middle two to get negative 2x. So what's important about this is that this number is those two numbers multiplied. Okay, so this is your multiply number. This negative 2 comes from those two numbers added. Negative 5 plus 3 gives you negative 2. So when we're given a function, an equation, and we look at that constant, that came from two numbers multiplied. And the linear term, the middle term, came from two numbers added together. So if you can't find those numbers right away, you can write down all the factors of 12. And which one has a chance of getting to be 1 when you add or subtract? That's 3 and 4. And the only way to get to positive 1 is to make 4 positive and 3 negative. So that turns this into a minus 3 and a plus 4. Now, when you're solving for 0, that means that either one of them can be 0 or both of them can be 0. So let's set them equal to 0, add 3 to both sides, subtract 4 from both sides, and we have our two answers, 3 and negative 4. Okay, looking at number 5, this one is not in standard form, so we'll write it in standard form first. We are going to subtract 6 from both sides. So negative 6 can't combine with the b squared or the negative b, so we write it as a trinomial there. There you have it. So now this becomes two numbers that multiply to be negative 6 and add to be negative 1. Same reasons as before. That negative 6 is those two numbers multiplied together to get that bottom right-hand box. And the negative 1 is those two numbers added together to form the two diagonal boxes. So if you can't think of those two numbers, let's write down all the factors of 6. 1 times 6, 2 times 3. And the only one that has a chance of getting to be negative 1 is 2 and 3. And the only way that works is when you have positive 2 and negative 3. Again, solving when it's equal to 0 means that either one or both of them could be 0. And you get those two numbers for answers. All right, we'll do one more here. And this one, if you notice, there's a 2p squared, and it's also not in standard form. So the first goal is to get it in standard form. So we're going to add 4p. We're also going to subtract 16. And since none of them can be combined, we'll write it as a trinomial. And what you notice here is that all of them can be divided by 2. So here is that GCF part that I was talking about right here. So you end up with 1p squared and 2p and negative 8. So now we are looking for two numbers that multiply to be negative 8 and add to be 2. So again, for the purposes of this film, I will write them. Those are the only two possibilities, and the only one that has a chance is 2 and 4. And the only way to get positive 2 out of this is to make that a negative. So factored, this equation looks like this. P minus 2 and P plus 4 are factors. And then solving, set each of the parts equal to 0. Now what you'll notice is that this one doesn't have an x, so that won't give us any answers. But if we add 2 to both sides for this one and subtract 4 from both sides of this one, we end up with our solutions. Now if you need more help, go ahead and see your teacher, replay this film, do what you need to do, but get that extra practice you need in order to pass this target.